Chapter 1. The Invitation. It started with an envelope. No logo. No return address. Just thick cream paper, folded once, sealed with a thin silver sticker shaped like a lowercase e. Most people thought it was a mistake. A joke. A marketing ploy, maybe. But the instructions inside were simple. You are invited to the empathy room. A place where silence ends and stories begin. No names required. No recordings made. Just truth. Wednesday, 6 p.m., room 317, West Annex building. Bring nothing. Just yourself. Yar. No RSVP. No context. Just a quiet dare. Riley Monroe, ICU nurse, found her envelope tucked between a stack of unpaid bills. She was late for work, hair still damp, her scrubs half-buttoned. She almost tossed the envelope in the bin. But something about the weight of it made her pause. She opened it on the bus, read it once, then again. A place where silence ends. She slipped it into her lunch bag and told no one. Marco Vasquez, senior manager of logistics, opened his in the middle of a Zoom meeting. He muted the call, scanned the letter, and frowned. He thought someone from HR had lost their mind. He Googled empathy room. Nothing. He emailed the building manager. No reply. He made a note to drop by anyway. Just to see what bullshit they're up to, he muttered. But he kept the letter in his breast pocket all week. Janelle Hightower, 58, former head of finance, now semi-retired after her early leave, found the letter under her doormat. She hadn't spoken to anyone from her old office in 6 months. Not since that last, bitter email from her daughter. She didn't like riddles. She didn't like silver stickers. She didn't like rooms with numbers. But she sat with the letter at her kitchen table and stared at the words, "Just yourself," for a very long time. And for reasons she couldn't explain, she marked the date on her calendar. David Lee didn't speak when he received the letter. He never spoke, really. Not unless spoken to. Not unless the mop bucket needed to be moved. Not unless someone spilled coffee on tile. The envelope was waiting for him on the janitor's cart. No one saw who put it there. He took it home, opened it, read it twice, then tucked it beneath the floorboard under his bed, alongside 2 other things he never let anyone touch. But he showed up on Wednesday. Not early, not late, just when the door opened. Sonia Patel, licensed therapist, received hers through interoffice mail. Odd. She assumed it was part of a wellness initiative, or maybe a prank from one of the interns. But the typeface was elegant, the message sparse but personal. A part of her wanted to ignore it. She had enough emotional unraveling in her day job. Another part of her, quieter but more honest, felt something in her chest clench when she read the line. Just truth. That part hadn't spoken in years. She marked the time in her planner, in pencil. Wednesday came. Room 317 sat at the end of a quiet hall in the West Annex building. Once used for board meetings, now mostly storage. No windows. No cameras. Just a long wooden table, 12 chairs, and a single dim floor lamp in the corner. They arrived separately. Each walked in and paused at the door. Some made eye contact. Most didn't. But they sat. No one led. No one introduced themselves. The door clicked shut. A silence fell. Comfortable for some, excruciating for others. Until a voice, not loud but steady, broke it. "I think we're supposed to tell the story we've never told." Heads turned. Riley. Eyes red. Shoulders tight. Voice fragile but undeniable. A long pause. Then someone nodded. And the room waited. Chapter 2. Riley, the caregiver who never asked for care. Riley didn't plan to speak first. She had come to listen. To sit in the back of the room like she had done all her life, letting others unload while she smiled, nodded, and carried their weight on her own back. But something about the room, the way no one expected her to lead, yet no one stopped her when she did, felt different. She took a breath, and then she began. "I'm a nurse," she said. "Critical care. ICU. Been at Harborview for 8 years." No one nodded. No one interrupted. They just listened. "I'm good at it. I don't flinch. I know what dying looks like. I know what families look like when they're told someone won't make it." She folded her hands in her lap, fingers twisting. "But I didn't know what my own face looked like when they told me about my sister." The room stilled. She was hit by a car. Texting. The driver didn't stop. She died before the ambulance arrived. I was on a double shift. I didn't even see the first missed call from my dad until after we'd resuscitated a 19-year-old who'd overdosed in the ER. She exhaled, and then, softly, I went back to work the next day. That made some in the room shift, not in judgment, in recognition. I didn't go to the funeral, she said. We couldn't afford to fly out twice, and I told them it was okay, that it wasn't a big deal. She looked up, eyes full but unblinking. They believed me, because I've always been the one who handles it. The strong one, the calm one, the one who listens to everyone else cry. She paused. For the last 4 years, I've held the hands of dying strangers. I've comforted husbands who just lost wives, daughters who lost fathers. I've told patients it's okay to let go. Then her voice cracked. But no one ever told me it was okay to fall apart. A silence filled the room like water. No one spoke. No one needed to. The weight of her truth sat in the center of the circle, and no one dared move it yet. Finally, the man beside her, Marco, stiff and quiet until now, cleared his throat. He didn't say much. Just, "I'm sorry." And Riley, who had heard that phrase from hundreds of mouths before, believed it, maybe for the first time. Because he didn't say it like he was trying to make it better. He said it like he knew he couldn't. After the meeting, Riley stepped into the hallway and pressed her back against the wall. Her hands were shaking. Not from shame, from release. It felt like someone had cut the wire behind her ribs that had been holding her upright for too long. And instead of collapsing, she breathed. That night, she returned home to her small studio, fed her cat, and sat on the floor with a notebook she hadn't opened in years. At the top of a clean page, she wrote, "I didn't grieve wrong. I just did it alone." Then she turned off the lights and slept all the way through the night, for the first time in over 3 years. Chapter 3, Marco, the manager who fired his brother. Marco wasn't the kind of man who sat in circles. He was the kind who stood, pointed, decided. 12 years in logistics had carved him into someone who didn't blink at deadlines, didn't flinch at layoffs, and didn't waste time with soft talk. But now, in this strange room with its unassuming light and silent walls, he found himself staring at the grain of the table, hearing Riley's story echo through him like a low chord on a cello. He didn't plan to speak, but his voice started before his brain caught up. "I fired my brother," he said. 2 years ago, March 3rd, 9:42 a.m. Everyone turned toward him, but he didn't lift his eyes. We worked in the same department. He was 4 years younger. Smart, sharp, but he didn't follow protocol. Took risks. Skipped steps to hit numbers. Marco flexed his hands once, then rested them still. I warned him. Twice. Then came the warehouse audit. One of his shortcuts almost cost us a contract. A pause. I was the one who had to sign the paperwork. No one asked the obvious question. Marco answered it anyway. Yes, I had a choice. I could have protected him. Blamed someone else. Said it was a team failure. He looked up now, his eyes sharp but not defensive. But I didn't. He sat with that, let the judgment settle in the air. Then he added, softer, he didn't speak to me for 8 months. Not even when Mom had her stroke. Said I'd always cared more about rules than people. Someone across the room stirred. Janelle, maybe. Or David. He didn't look. I told myself I did the right thing. That I saved the team. Saved the company. He drew in a long breath. But lately I've started wondering if I did it because I didn't know how to ask him to stay. Because asking might have felt like weakness. The silence was deeper now. Not accusatory. Just a real. He forgave me, Marco said, surprising even himself. This January. Sent a text. I would have fired me too. Still sucks though. A few in the room smiled, just barely. Marco stared at his hands. I don't think I've forgiven myself. When the circle broke for the night, Marco stood last. He didn't talk to anyone on his way out. Didn't linger. Just gave a small nod, like acknowledging the weight of the stories he was carrying out the door. But when he reached the hallway, he took out his phone. He scrolled past work emails, meeting notes, system updates, until he found the thread. Leo brother, green circle online. Marco typed. Just left a weird group thing. People telling stories they never told. I told them about us. About March 3rd. He hovered over send. Then added, I'm still sorry. Even if you're fine. I just needed to say that somewhere. He hit send. 3 dots blinked. Then stopped. Then started again. Leo replied, I already knew. But thanks. I needed to hear it anyway. Chapter 4. Janelle, the woman who hates her daughter. Janelle had told herself for years that she was simply tired. That's what people her age said when they didn't want to talk. I'm tired. Tired of the noise, the traffic, the politics, the youth, the mess. It was socially acceptable, unquestioned. But tired wasn't the truth. The truth was uglier. She resented her daughter. And it shamed her so much she'd never said it aloud, not even to herself. Not until the moment she sat in room 317, under soft lamplight, surrounded by strangers, and heard Riley and Marco strip down their stories to bare emotion. Then, like a door quietly clicking open, Janelle began to speak. I used to be someone, she said. Her voice was even. Flat. Too controlled. Head of finance. Big firm. Ran 3 departments. Oversaw millions in budget. I wore heels taller than your self-esteem. A ripple of soft laughter, but Janelle didn't smile. Then came the merger. Then came the health stuff. Then the polite suggestion to ease out. She crossed her arms. Her bracelets clinked too loudly in the hush. But that's not the story. That's just the wallpaper. She looked around, her eyes sharp and unsentimental. I have 1 daughter. Her name's Morgan. She's 32 now. Lives in Chicago. Smart. Beautiful. The kind of woman strangers compliment in coffee shops. A beat. And I hate her. The words hung in the air like gunfire. No one moved. No one gasped. They waited. I'm not supposed to say that, Janelle continued. Mothers love their children. Period. End of sentence. If you don't, it's your failure. Your defect. Your rot. She shook her head. But I do love her. In the sense that I want her to be safe, successful. I'd take a bullet for her. Her voice broke, not from tears. From tension. But I don't like her. I dread her voice. I recoil from her texts. I read them and feel heat rise in my chest, like heartburn. I avoid calls. I flinch at holidays. She stared at a knot in the wood table. I used to think it was her fault. She was cold. Unfeeling. Blunt. She said I smothered her. She called me manipulative. Controlling. Once, she told me I was the reason she never wanted children. Janelle's hands began to tremble. I didn't go to her wedding. A few people inhaled softly. She didn't ask me to. Janelle looked up, eyes glinting. I tell myself she's ungrateful. That I worked full-time while raising her. That I gave her ballet lessons and structure and self-respect. That I never hit her. Never abandoned her. That I did my job. She leaned back. And maybe I did. But she wanted more. Wanted softness. Vulnerability. Emotional nuance. She spat the word like it tasted sour. I never had those things. No one gave them to me. And I didn't know how to give what I'd never been taught. Now her voice softened, like leather worn thin. I think she hates me too. Quietly. Elegantly. Without rage. Just distance. A long silence. Then, I miss her. But I don't know how to stop blaming her for making me feel like a failed human being. For the first time, tears came. Not sobs. Not drama. Just a slow, steady leak, salt and regret in equal parts. No one in the circle spoke, until Sonia, the therapist, said gently, "Do you want her to know that?" Janelle laughed bitterly. She wouldn't believe it. She might, Sonia said, if it came without defense. Janelle looked away, but she didn't argue. That night, back home, she pulled out an old photo album, one she hadn't touched in over a decade. Inside, a photo of Morgan at 8 years old. Braces, oversized sweatshirt, her arm awkwardly slung around Janelle's stiff waist. Janelle traced her daughter's face with a fingertip and whispered, "I'm sorry I didn't know how." She didn't call her that night. She wasn't ready, but she left the album open and placed it on the kitchen table, like a promise she hadn't made yet. Chapter 5, David, the silent janitor. David didn't talk, not out of principle, not because he was shy, not even because of some grand trauma. He simply found that when he did talk, people didn't listen. Or worse, recoiled, dismissed, smiled politely like they were checking off a box. So eventually he stopped offering. In the empathy room, he had been silent for 4 sessions. Never missed one. Always early. Sat 2 chairs from the door. hands folded, listening so deeply it made others nervous. But tonight, something changed. He pulled a folded paper from his pocket, unfolded it carefully, and began to read. I used to be a high school English teacher. Heads turned. His voice was low, gravelly with disuse, but steady. For 14 years. I loved it. Not just the books. The kids. The weird, brilliant, unpredictable minds. The ones no one believed in. He glanced up once. Just once. Then came Alicia. He paused. She was bright. Eager. Wrote poetry like someone 3 times her age. I stayed after class sometimes to help her prep for college. His fingers tightened around the paper. She came to me once. Said she didn't feel safe at home. That her stepfather touched her. Now the room shifted. I did what I thought was right. I reported it. Told the counselor. The system took over. And then, he stopped. Swallowed. Then Alicia told the school I made her feel uncomfortable too. The breath left the room. I was put on leave. There was no investigation. No charges. Just silence. And suspicion. He looked down. My wife asked me to move out. Said it was temporary. It wasn't. He folded the paper. Not angrily. Carefully. I never spoke to Alicia again. I don't even blame her. Maybe she panicked. Maybe someone pressured her. Maybe she just wanted control of something. He looked around the room. I lost everything. My job. My marriage. My voice. A pause. But not my mind. I still read. I still write. I still remember every poem she gave me. Then he added softly, and I still believe her. Someone exhaled loudly. Maybe Riley. David continued. I took this job because cleaning doesn't require trust. Only effort. He looked at them, not pleading, not defensive. I'm not here for pity. I just wanted one place where I wasn't invisible. He sat back, and for the first time in 4 sessions, he looked calm. Whole. When the circle broke for the night, no one rushed out. Riley squeezed his shoulder. Marco nodded at him wordlessly. Sonia handed him a folded note. Inside, a quote by Mary Oliver. Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? David didn't reply. But he went home that night and opened a folder on his desktop called Unsent. And he began typing. A story. This time not for students. Not for a principal. Not even for Alicia. Just for himself. Chapter 6. Sonia, the therapist who can't sleep. Sonia Patel was the kind of therapist who made people cry in under 20 minutes. Not because she was cruel. Because she listened without blinking. Because she didn't fill the silences. Because she saw right through, I'm fine, and knew exactly when to say, Are you sure? She was good. Booked months in advance. Respected. Trusted. Quoted in local podcasts. Once featured in a top 20 women in mental health list by a magazine she didn't subscribe to. But what no one knew, what no one even thought to ask, was that Sonia hadn't slept through the night in 4 years. And it wasn't work stress. It wasn't insomnia, not exactly. It was memory. Uninvited. Unyielding. And tonight, for the first time, she let it surface in the empathy room. When I was 22, she began, I was in grad school. First-year clinical program. I wanted to save the world. You know, like every bleeding heart who applies to psychology. Some nodded. She smiled, but it was tight. Controlled. I interned at a women's shelter in Tacoma. Shadowed a counselor named Marlene. Brilliant woman. Tough as nails. Taught me more in 3 months than my whole undergrad did. She paused. Her fingers tapped her water bottle. There was a woman there. Elena. Mid-30s. Domestic abuse survivor. 2 kids. She had just escaped her husband a week before coming in. Her voice tightened. Elena, she latched onto me. Maybe because I was soft. Maybe because I reminded her of someone. She trusted me. A beat. One day I stayed late. We sat in the garden. She told me she thought he was following her again. That she saw his car. That her youngest woke up screaming. Sonia's jaw flexed. I told her she was probably projecting. That trauma does that. I didn't say she was wrong, but I didn't believe her either. I tried to ground her. Validate her feelings. Give her a breathing exercise. She took a long breath. 2 days later, he found her. In a grocery store parking lot. In front of her kids. No one moved. She survived. Barely. He went to prison. The kids ended up in foster care for a while. Sonia stared straight ahead, and I never saw her again. The room was silent. No judgment, no comforting words, which was exactly what she needed. I've counseled hundreds of women since. I've done trauma-informed training. I've published articles on hypervigilance and gaslighting. Her hands were still now, but I still wake up some nights hearing her voice say, "I saw him. I know what I saw." Her voice dropped to almost a whisper. I built my whole career trying to fix something I failed at. Then she looked around the circle. And the truth is, maybe I'm not here to help anyone else. Maybe I'm here because I want someone to tell me I was young, that it wasn't all my fault. After the session, Janelle handed her a tissue. She didn't speak, just gave her a look that said, "I know something about guilt too." Sonia nodded, then turned to David and said, "I'd like to read your story sometime, if that's okay." David smiled. A real one. Riley wrapped Sonia in a hug so tight it startled her. "Thank you," Riley whispered, "for proving strong people bleed too." Sonia didn't reply. She couldn't, not yet. But that night, she slept. Not deeply, not dreamlessly, but without waking. And in the morning, that was enough. Chapter 7, Interlude, What We Don't Say. No one spoke first that night. The chairs were arranged the same. The light was the same. Even the smell, the faint lavender of old carpet, the clean paper scent of folded notes, was the same. But something had shifted. In the stillness after 6 weeks of stories, the silence now felt full, not empty. Like the hush before a symphony, not the pause before a storm. Finally, the moderator, who had barely spoken until now, cleared their throat. Not loud, just enough, and asked, "Why do we only tell our truths in rooms like this?" A long breath moved through the space. No one rushed to answer, until Riley whispered, "Because we think we're the only ones." Marco followed, "Because out there, truth sounds like weakness." Janelle, "Because if we say it out loud, it becomes real." Sonia, "Because no one taught us how to speak without defending." David didn't speak. He just wrote something in his notebook. The moderator smiled, small, warm, brief, and then asked again, "What do you wish someone had told you when it hurt the most?" The answers came slower, more tentative. Riley, that I didn't need to keep it all together. Marco, that doing the right thing doesn't mean you won't regret it. Janelle, that it's not too late. David looked up, then said softly, "That one mistake doesn't erase everything else you were." Silence again. Then the moderator said, "I believe that if we don't tell our stories, they start telling us. They decide who we are. They shape what we avoid. And eventually they turn into a kind of quiet prison." Everyone was listening, eyes open, minds still. "But in a room like this," the moderator added, "where no one's trying to fix you, just see you, the story can change." They sat like that for a long time, not trying to solve anything, not wrapping up, just holding space, for all the things they hadn't said yet, and all the things they now might. Chapter 8, The Night Someone Cried for You. It wasn't planned. No one sent a reminder email. No agenda. No official note from HR. But every single chair in room 317 was filled that night. 2 new faces showed up, quietly. A shy copywriter from marketing, an intern who looked too young to carry so much in his eyes. No one asked what brought them. The room had learned, you don't have to explain why you came. You only have to be willing to stay. The moderator waited for the usual pause to pass, then said simply, "Tonight, we're not here to tell our own story. We're here to tell the story of the moment someone cried for us when we didn't expect it. And if that's never happened, that's okay too, because maybe tonight it will." Silence. A long, slow breath of silence. And then Riley spoke. "It was a patient," she said. "A woman named Elsie, 81, liver failure, hadn't eaten in 4 days." She folded her arms. Not defensively, just grounding herself. Everyone gave up on her, called her combative, non-compliant. She looked around. I sat with her after shift one night, just held her hand. Didn't say anything, just stayed. She blinked fast. She looked at me and said, "You look so tired. Does anyone ever hold your hand?" Riley paused. I didn't answer, but when I looked down, she was crying. For me, a beat. No one had ever done that before. Marco's voice followed. I got into a car accident at 22. Minor. But my knee shattered. His hands were on his thighs now, as if they still remembered the pain. I was trying to be tough. Cracked jokes. Said it was just cartilage. He smirked, but the smirk didn't last. My dad, stoic army guy, never once said, I love you out loud. He sat next to me in the ER and just lost it. A hush. I remember feeling confused. Like, why are you crying? I'm not even crying. He shook his head slowly. That's the moment I realized. Sometimes people don't cry because you're broken. They cry because they love what might have been lost. Janelle didn't say much. Just this. The day my daughter blocked me on everything, I called my sister. She didn't pick up. But 2 days later, she showed up at my door. She didn't say anything. Just sat beside me. And cried. I didn't know people could cry for your grief without judging how you got there. David waited until the room had settled. Then, from a folded note, read 4 words. Someone cried for me. He looked up. That's the sentence I never thought I'd get to say. Sonia, for once, was the last to speak. And when she did, it was barely above a whisper. It was my mother. I hadn't told her about Elena, or the guilt, or the insomnia. One night, I visited her. I sat at the kitchen table and said, I think I broke something in me. She didn't ask questions. She didn't give advice. She just reached across the table, took my hand, and wept. I was 36. It was the first time she had touched me without correcting something. The new intern didn't speak, but his eyes shone, and everyone saw it. Sometimes someone crying for you didn't look like tears. Sometimes it looked like being willing to feel alongside you. That night, as the group left the room, no one walked out alone. People drifted into pairs, trios. Hands touched shoulders. Laughter flickered at the edges. No stories were finished. But something had shifted. As if for the first time, the room itself had exhaled. The last to leave was the moderator. They locked the door behind them, paused in the hallway, and whispered, not to anyone, but maybe to the room itself. Tonight, you did your job. Chapter 9, What Changes After. They didn't call it healing. No one walked out of room 317 and threw their arms up, shouting, I'm free, like in the movies. No one changed their wardrobe, or quit their job, or started writing poems under candlelight. But things shifted. Subtly. Steadily. The way light shifts when a cloud moves. Riley stopped apologizing for being tired. She took her first vacation in 5 years. Just 2 days. Drove up to a cabin with no cell service. Read a book without highlighting anything. Watch squirrels fight over a granola bar. When she returned, one of the new nurses said, You look different. Riley smiled and said, I feel more. Marco didn't fire anyone that quarter. Instead, he invited his team to a feedback circle. Told them about his brother, just the basics. Someone teared up. Someone else stayed after to say, You lead better now. Marco didn't say thank you. He just nodded, and wrote his brother another message that night. Janelle didn't call her daughter. Not yet, but she started therapy. Week 3, her therapist said, You don't have to love perfectly to start loving again. Janelle replied, Can I hate someone and still miss them every day? The therapist said, Yes. So Janelle left a voicemail for Morgan. It just said, Thinking of you. That was all. But it wasn't nothing. David submitted a short story to a local journal. It didn't win, but someone wrote back and said, This moved me. That night, he reread the comment 5 times. Then printed it, framed it, and hung it on the back of his closet door. Sonia still couldn't sleep through every night. But when the dreams came, she stopped fighting them. One morning, she woke up at 3:47 a.m., sat at her kitchen table, and wrote a letter she'd never send to Elena. It began, You were right. I'm sorry I made you feel like you had to prove it. She sealed the letter in an envelope, wrote nothing on the front, and placed it in her freezer, next to a pint of mango sorbet. Some ghosts, she realized, prefer the cold. No one knew what happened to the moderator. They never showed up again after week 7. But room 317 stayed open. People kept coming. Sometimes it was the same faces. Sometimes new ones. No agenda. No rules. Just the same line at the top of every page left on every chair. Tell the story you've never told. Chapter 10. The story I never told. I never planned to be in the room. When I created it, room 317, the empathy room, I thought I'd stay outside the circle. The observer. The quiet designer of space, not story. But people surprised me. They came. They stayed. They told the kind of truths that usually rot in the dark. And every week, while they spoke, I sat near the corner, clipboard in hand, neutral expression, eyes soft but unreadable. Not because I didn't feel, because I felt too much, and I couldn't risk unraveling. Until now. So here is the story I never told. My father was a pastor. My mother was tired. She never said those words, but I saw it in the way she stirred tea too long, in how she'd sometimes stand in doorways and forget to enter. In our house, silence was next to godliness. Feelings were acknowledged, then gently redirected. Give it to God, we were told. Don't dwell. But some feelings don't want to be handed off. Some want to be held. When I was 15, I told my father I was gay. He didn't yell. He didn't quote scripture. He just blinked, rubbed his forehead, and said, "I think you're confused." Then he told me to pray on it. So I did, every night for 2 years, until the prayers turned into questions, and the questions turned into poems, and the poems turned into silence again. Because in my house, there was no room for contradiction. No space for "I love you" to coexist with "I don't understand you." In college, I studied psychology, not to help others, to decode myself. But textbooks don't teach you how to ask your own mother why she cried when you brought your first boyfriend home. They don't teach you how to sit across from someone who taught you to smile through pain and say, "That wasn't love. That was fear wearing a mask." So I didn't say anything. Not then. Not for years. I built the empathy room after overhearing a coworker say, "People should cry at home, not at work." Something in me snapped. Not violently, just decisively. I thought, what if there were a room where crying wasn't just allowed but understood? A place where the story you hide doesn't get you removed, but makes you more human. For a long time, I thought I created it for others, but that was a lie I wrapped in noble language. The truth, I built it for me, because I wanted to know what it would feel like to speak a secret and not be punished for it. To be seen, not corrected. So here it is, the story I never told. I still love my father. I still flinch when I see his name on my phone. We speak on birthdays. He says things like, "We're proud of you," but he never says, "I'm sorry." And I've stopped expecting him to, because the truth is, I've forgiven him for not knowing how to hold what I needed him to hold. And you reading this, whoever you are, you don't owe the world a clean story. You don't have to wrap your pain in a lesson. Sometimes survival is the story. Sometimes just being here is enough. That's what the empathy room taught me. And maybe if it's taught you something too, you'll tell someone. Or maybe you won't. But you'll walk through the world a little softer, a little slower to judge, a little quicker to sit beside someone who doesn't know how to begin. And when they finally speak, you won't try to fix them. You'll just say, "Me too."